Hello everybody, this is Adrienne with Ascension Soul Coaching, and it's been a while since I've been online, but there's been a lot of things going on in the world. One of the biggest things, of course, everybody's been watching and paying attention to is the COVID-19 virus. As I had said earlier this year that I had gotten sick back in February, no, it was January, with a really strong flu, me and my husband, and we thought that's all it was. And then I realized that maybe we had the COVID. Don't know. We never got I didn't get tested. He got tested and they said it was the flu. But it was a really weird type of flu. But so now this is April the 27th of 2020. And I think as of yesterday or this weekend, the CDC, or in the United States, it's the Center for Disease Control, has come out and said that there's, and I think maybe also the WHO, the World Health Organization, has come out and said that there are additional symptoms for COVID. You would think after all this time of them studying people and studying the actual virus that they would know what the symptoms were. But, so I haven't done a reading in a while. I've done a personal reading for myself on the COVID, and there's a lot of things that's been, I pretty much uncovered, and I truly believe in my cards. But I'm not going to do a card reading today. What I want to talk about today is what is a possibility of what's happening. So you know that YouTube and Twitter and a lot of the social media sites are banning people from talking about COVID and some other things, or they want the information to come directly from them unless you're totally citing them. So I'm going to kind of skirt around some things so that I don't get this upload doesn't get taken down, or I don't get banned from YouTube. So I'm going to be, so just read between the lines. I'm going to try to be as transparent as I can be. These are my opinions. I want you to do your own research. I will point you to some things you can look up yourself. But what I'm going to do today is just give you some information, and you can take that information and you can go do your own research on it. I'm not going to tell you what to think. I'm going to tell you about some possible links of things that might be happening, but in no way am I saying it's true. I am only saying that it's a possibility. There's a huge coincidence that's going on, and you all need to be responsible for understanding what is going on with your government, in your nation, and in your world, so that you can take care of your family, your friends, and yourself. Okay, so let's talk about some things, and I'm going to be dead serious about the things I have been thinking about since this happened. So let me give you a little background about who I am or what I do. First of all, you know I'm a reader. If you're on my channel, you already know I'm a reader. I do tarot cards. I've been psychic all my life. All right, and now I don't have this big talent and all that. I can read cards. I have dreams. I have clairvoyance, and I have. Sometimes I hear voices, not often, not voices, okay, but there's words that's given to me, and then those things tend to be very valuable later on, right? My mom had the ability, and other people in my family have the ability, okay? Some have stronger abilities than others. I'm always working on mine. You always should be developing your intuition. Everybody has intuition, and I think the world right now is feeling that something's just not right. This is so unusual about what's happening. So you don't need to be a psychic, right? You just need to be a human being and tap into, normal stuff and what's not normal, right? Normal events and non-normal events. What's happening, and try to, if you put a little bit of critical thinking to some things, you can pretty much get an idea of what's going on, at least get an inkling that just something's just not sitting right with you. So anyway, so my background, other than that, in auditing and accounting, and having a business background, having a master's in human relations and business, and working on my doctorate in forensic psychology, is that I study and notice patterns. I used to, when I was in college, when I was getting my undergrad, when I was a young girl, I used to listen to all the talk radio stations and the biggest ones in America. At the time was, Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity and Michael Savage. And I would go home after school because I would in between classes, I was listening to the radio when I was sitting in my car, just listening or doing homework. But then I would go home in the evening and I'd watch CNN, MSNBC, Fox. I didn't watch any of the big ABCs, NBCs. I outdone them a long time ago. But why I listened to all of those stations is it wasn't on plan. It was just, if you're working, I like to have background noise. And so I would hear all these different people talk about how they saw the world, their worldview on politics and the economy and the environment. So I was listening to all these things from different people. And those shows, especially the talk shows, they would have people call in. Back then, and I think some stations still do that, you can have people call in, and some people called in and they had a lot of background because they were working in the field, they'd heard information, they were kind of like whistleblowers, or they just wanted the dialogue. And then some people called in with their intuition and what they felt, but you got a broad idea of what America was thinking about certain issues, certain candidates, certain policies, certain bills, right? And I did that for years. I listened to them for years. I think from 1988 until 2012, 2013, right around the time Obama was running and had won the election the first time, President Barack Obama. So when they got to Barack in 2011, 2012, they became, the conservative stations were so against Obama, and they became a lot of them became very racist, calling him Barry, and he's a Muslim, and he's a this, and I just got tired of it. And so eventually I just stopped listening to the conservative stations. And I think the whole industry had changed. So one of the things that I learned about in the early 90s was something that President George H. Bush, the father, and a lot of politicians were talking about and had signed on to, which had to do with the UN, United Nations, was this whole new way of doing business with sustainable development goals, so the SDGs. And that this is actually something they had been talking about for years, even before the 90s, right? This is something that the world leaders have been getting together and talking about, or maybe people higher up than our normal governments having these think tanks or whatever talking about this sustainability. I learned in the 90s that this had been ongoing. But in the 90s, they actually, George Bush actually signed the United States onto this plan to move it forward. And there was a lot of Democrats, like Pelosi, she was behind it too. She thought it was a good plan. So it was a mixture. It was, both parties were in on this. So, and they were talking about depopulation and vaccinations and how the world was overrun with people, and the economy, the environment was going to hell, and there were tree huggers. There was all this stuff going on, right? So they were talking about all this and how to solve the problem. Well, there was this plan that came out, so of course Bush had signed on to it, right? The UN Agenda 21 or UN 21. Now, some people say that the 21 was the 21st century, and some were saying it was the target date of 2021. It was about sustainability of the earth, of the world. All right. So they talked about poverty. They talked about the environment. They talked about the land. They talked about the oceans. They talked about all those things, inequalities, poverty, and how they were going to eradicate it. But the plan was so radical, it was like, what in the world? Because then when the people call in and say they were against it, they'd say, well, if you do this, then they're saying that the government can take over our land, can take over our homes, make us move into the cities. They could take our cars away. Technically, they're taking our rights away to make choices where we want to live. So that's why you got that side where you're like, what? As they start explaining what this really meant. You can call it whatever you want. This is what you would be doing. You would be taking people's rights, citizens' rights, especially Americans, because of course we're Americans, we listen from our point of view, our worldview, rights, the way to do and live the way we wanted to live. And so there was a lot of back and forth about that. So I remember that very clearly. But then they found out the year 2021 were whatever, 2021 was too aggressive. They had too many things they had to do, and too many countries weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing who had signed on to the initial agreement. So they pushed the target from 2021 to 2030. Now, in 2015, they came up, the UN agreed to the 2030 target. Also, they agreed to using, around that time, 5G technology. So the 5G is going to be able to do a lot of things. It's going to be able to, one of the things they're touting, right, yeah, you could download a movie in 3 seconds flat. Great. But that's not the reason why they want to go 5G. The reason they want to go 5G is because of the technology that it offers to companies and specifically to the government as far as monitoring and tracking people. Now, if you've heard this technology, this phrase before through the COVID virus outbreak was test, trace, and track. Well, how do you think they're going to track people? One way is if they're saying that if they go out and they test you and you are found to have COVID, then they're also going to ask you to list everybody else who has COVID or everybody else you've been in contact with in the past so many days or weeks. And then they're going to go out and see if those people have, test them and see if they have COVID. And then they're going to, so that's the tracing, and then they're going to track them, because once you say you have the COVID virus, or they say you have it, they're going to track you and the people who have been identified as positively having COVID, and then they're going to make sure that a lot of people are going to be vaccinated. Now you say, well, I don't have to be vaccinated because I've never had it. If you listen closely, they're telling you everybody's going to get COVID. They're telling you. They're not asking you. They're not making an exception. They have made a declaration that everybody's going to get COVID. So therefore, if everybody get COVID, everybody has to take the vaccination. Because the other thing they're floating around is if you don't get tested, then you can't go to work. So if you're a government contractor, government worker, in the military, are they going to make it so that if you can't go back, the children can't go back to school if they don't have the vaccination? Are they going to put out propaganda that if you don't take the vaccination that you shouldn't be hired, right? Or that people be afraid, make people afraid of hiring you because you now have the COVID? But see, what I realize is that when you get vaccinated, it's so that you don't get sick, not that you don't spread it. Vaccinations does not stop you from spreading it. Vaccinations is meant to keep you from getting it. So these stories and these scare tactics they're putting out there is, well, if you don't get tested and if you don't get the vaccination, you may be not even knowingly infecting your grandmother or your other sick relative. Read up on what vaccinations do. They prevent you from getting the virus, or if you get it, so that your antibodies can help work stronger to burn off or to kill the viruses. It's not to stop you from passing it on to someone. So I'm saying all this. I just want you to understand there's a lot of information out there. I cannot say that COVID is coming from 5G or whatever. I can just say do your research, because there's a lot of links to the two. There's a lot of correlation in where they're being implemented based on to where the COVID, the virus, it has this hot spots. Now, in the States, they're saying that the first some of the first cities to get, and I'll just name them, some of the first cities to get the 5G was, like, say, New York and Atlanta, right? It was in September. Now they're moving back to COVID stories, saying we think that America's had COVID in America since September. Yeah, some of the other countries overseas started to roll out a little earlier, August. There was, of course, a lot of testing areas, yes, and they were just test areas, small areas, and then they went and they implemented it, and then a lot of people got sick overseas, but they started doing it. Definitely China did it first, and other countries did it, and then we started. Our bulk of our enrollment and rollout was in September of 2019 when New York started their rollout. Therefore, New York is not just because these cities are big, it's because these are the cities they wanted to use for the testing sites and the biggest sites. And I'm also going to link that with the UN. We're going to get into the UN Agenda 21, the UN Agenda 2030. The 5G technology that is being rolled out now, they've been studying this for years. G up until 4G has been studied. They've documented it. I think there was a report that the WHO put out in 1996, I want to say, about the health risk, environmental risk for that type of technology for our cellular phones and our Wi-Fi. And they said that they did the test, and they said that unless there's a high concentration of frequencies, would anybody ever get sick? Like, because it can create cancer. It can give you cancer in high doses. They did lab tests on rats and stuff like that and other things. The 4G, let's say, works. If you look in your city, your antennas, or your towers rather, for your 4Gs are not close to your homes. They're on the outskirts of your neighborhood, if you ever noticed. Also, that technology, the beams of the frequencies bounces down and bounce back up. So they're never continually on you. They bounce down, they bounce back up, they bounce. It's just waves, right? 5G works totally different. 5G, they did the studies, and 5G is a shortwave, microwave, milliwaves, and they've talked about how it absorbs the air oxygen around it, right? And oxygen can block it. But if in that, it's also, if you're standing in the way and there's a large concentration of 5G, it can actually interrupt how you breathe because it's affecting the oxygen in the air. Also, they know that 5G affects immune systems. They know that 5G affects your blood hemoglobin. Some of the same things that are symptoms of 5G that they are aware of, it's very simple, similar to the COVID-19 symptoms, right? A lot of doctors are now coming out and says it's not just a respiratory issue that people are coming in with. They're having heart attacks, they're having strokes, they're dropping dead, and they're breathing. The lungs are full from like pneumonia, like they've been up in high altitudes. So they're saying some of the stuff that the WHO and CDCs were saying was symptoms of the COVID didn't fit. They were having other symptoms. Those other symptoms were very similar to what you may experience when you are around a lot of 5G. Now, they're saying, well, people are saying, well, how come other people are getting these symptoms or have COVID, don't have 5G? Well, okay, so when they said they were going to deploy 5G in 2015 as part of this new sustainability project, and we'll get into that, they put out test sites. Over time, they started putting out 5G test sites so they could see how it would work and then study it, right? But they didn't publish the studies, okay? I'm just telling you that that's what they did. So there's some areas who said that they're saying they don't have 5G, but they do, they have test sites, okay? And even if it's just affecting your immune systems, that means if you go to one area that does have it and you come back home, it could have affected your immune system and you could get sick, whatever. I'm not saying that there's nothing out there that's immune system that's affecting our immune systems right now. I think totally there is. What the source is the question. Or even if it's COVID, but 5G is making it worse or helping it to spread because it's affecting and weakening our immune systems, there is a correlation, I believe, to the two. My belief, okay? You have to look up your own. But when Verizon, the telecom systems here, one of the things that they were promoting with 5G was that it uses in oxygen absorption, okay? So that's one of the ways in some of their videos that they were explaining this new technology for 5G. And the other thing I wanted to say, and I'm probably all over the place, is that with 5G, if you look at anything prior to July 2019, there's multiple stories, news stories, ABC, NBC, talking about the effects, the negative effects and health impacts and environmental impacts of 5G. They talked to a lot of people, but after it went live and rolled out in the United States, which started around September, when I say rollout, I mean the big rollout, they stopped. You will not find a CBS, NBC, one of the big TV networks talking about any negative effects that 5G has, because once this was rolled out, I'm sure they were censored to say you can't talk about the negative impacts anymore. But prior to that, they're still on YouTube. You can go Google them if you want, or look up articles online where they were actually citing the negative impacts of 5G. The scientists that they say in 2015, when the UN said they were going to use 5G and this technology for the sustainability project, that because of 5G for shorter waves, for it to be able to work, they were going to have to use multiple antennas. So you have your towers, and then some of the towers are going to be utilizing the 4G towers, but to be able to effectively work, because they're short waves, they're going to have to put more and more antennas in the cities, in the neighborhoods, in the work areas. So in 2019, the UN came up with, they created this dashboard that lists all the cities, all the cities all over the world who are part of this program, but they also have one specifically for the US. And so I'm going to list, I think there's 104, it could be more, cities that are a part of this program as of 2019. So this report is showing what status they are, how far in the program are they. They're being evaluated on how far they're in the program and if they're going to be eligible or able to meet the 2030 deadline based on the guidelines they've given out to all the cities that said they want to be a part of this project, right? All right, so here's the report. It's from the 2019 Sustainability Development Report, okay? July 2019, 2019, right? This is for the 105 U.S. cities. So we're going to, like I said, we're not going to download the report because that just takes you to an Excel report. You just can scroll down and you can just see the report in this PDF online site. So we start here with San Francisco, Oakland, Hayward, California. They're given a score of 69.7, so they're on their way to meeting this. You have San Jose, Washington. So now I work in this area. I don't live in this area, I work in this area. Washington, Arlington, Alexandria, D.C., Virginia, Maryland, and West Virginia. You have Seattle, you have Madison, Boston, Raleigh, North Carolina, Austin, Round Rock, Texas, San Diego, California. You got Maine, New Hampshire. And remember, these are the cities that have signed up for it, not the states, the cities. Minneapolis, you got Bridgeport, Connecticut, Stamford, Newark, Des Moines, Iowa. You have some more cities in California. Here, New York, Newark, New Jersey. Right, and then you have some cities and some areas in Pennsylvania. That's the PA right there. Connecticut again, some more cities. Los Angeles, here you go. California. You got Denver, Colorado, Sacramento, again, California. A lot of cities in California. Trenton, New Jersey, Salt Lake City, Utah, New Hampshire, Utah. You got the Durham, Chapel Hill, North Carolina area. Pittsburgh. And then where I was from originally was Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Newport News, Virginia, on the North Carolina border here, North Carolina. So then you have Baltimore, Columbia, Towson of Maryland. So you have a lot of cities that signed up. There's Charlotte, North Carolina, Cape Coral, Fort Myers, Florida. You got Las Vegas, Kansas. Here's your Atlanta, Georgia. A couple more Texas. So you can see all these cities have signed up for this program, Richmond, Virginia, which is the capital of Virginia. Okay? And then Baton Rouge, Louisiana is on here. It's the last one. Memphis, Bakersfield, a lot of Californias. Let's see, South Carolina, a lot of places in Florida. Anyway, so I wanted to name a few here because this is a lot of places where they have 5G, where you see a lot of the 5G issues here, okay? The hotspots. And those hotspots would be New York, New Jersey area, Los Angeles, California. You have Virginia Beach area, Norfolk, which is, they call it Hampton Roads. And here's the Washington, D.C. area where I work. And you have your Atlanta area. Okay, so I just want to point you out that these cities are part of this program. And I also want to go back and show you also the Sustainability Development Report, right? This is from the UN. So when people say this is false, it's not. So I showed you those things because I really want you to understand that if someone comes to you and say, that's not true, these are not documented, verifiable goals that the US has signed up for, they're lying. They cannot deny this. Okay, so let me get into why this is all important. Okay, so there are 17 goals and I want you to go read them. So one of the goals is clean fuel. So they want to be able to get away from coal and oil, and they want to be able to use electric cars because, you know, don't have any smog or anything affecting the environment supposedly if you use electric cars too. They want you to use more rail, more subways, which is cool, right? It all links in together. Why do they want you to do that? What are they doing now? Let's just look at it now. What are they doing now? What are they doing now is they just crashed the freaking oil market. It's not worth anything anymore, is it? And it's going to go down more. For you to want to be able to live closer to the city and to understand and appreciate the environment, they're going to push and be a lot of propaganda on it. I mean, it's nothing wrong with that. It's just, let me tell you this, it's all about how they're going about to do it. I mean, I think a lot of Americans are probably like a lot of these things that they're trying to do. It's just how they're going about doing it, right? But what they're going to do and what they're doing now is, I'm going to lay it out for you. This is my opinion. Let's just keep saying that. To get your attention so they can implement this by 2021. I know there's a 2030 plan, and I think they're trying to confuse people by saying that there's no more 2021. There's a 2021 plan. The 2021 plan is to start the process to move, because it's going to take a while to re-educate people in their behaviors, modify people's behavior, so that by 2030 everybody's on board and complying. Whether they want to or not, they have no choice, right? They can't do everything all at once. So you come out with this COVID thing. You know 5G is going to cause sickness, but you don't tell people it's going to be 5G because then people don't want to use the 5G. So what you do, you say it's a virus. Whether the 5G is causing the virus, is promoting or excelling the virus, I don't know. But let's just say they know what the effects were. So they put the 5G out, roll it out, people start getting sick. People get fearful. We tell people they're going to die. All these 100,000 people in the next couple of months are going to die if we don't get you under control. You have to stay home now. What was the purpose of making people stay home? Because this was really like the flu, right? Technically, most people, they kept saying most people will get over it. Healthy people will get over it, and they'll have a couple of, symptoms, but they will recuperate. So they did a lockdown, right? Because they said the people who were sick and had underlying issues could die. However, if any of you all go outside during this lockdown, you will see Verizon and all these other telecom companies running around your neighborhood, updating the optic fibers in those boxes in your neighborhood. If you don't have those antennas in your neighborhood yet, you will be getting those antennas from 5G, because they have to put multiple antennas in your neighborhood for it to work. That means that's going to be, and they're going to be street level. So they're either going to put them on your street signs or utility poles or light poles that's already existing, or your buildings that's already existing, because they want it to meld into the architecture. They want you not to be able to really see that it's an eyesore, because it really is. And it's pumping out all this radiation. So that's what they're doing while you're not there. They're putting the 5G in schools. They're putting them in your workplaces or near your workplaces, because there's going to be a second rollout. The first phase is the towers, then the major city rollout, then the other city rolls out, okay? Then, and the schools, of course. Then, the other thing it accomplished is that it got you all to do exactly what they wanted. They said, hey, you're sick, you're going to get sick, stay home. And everybody decided to comply. Not many people fought. Later on they did. You saw people out protesting about this lockdown because they want to get back to work, but they didn't know why this was happening. So now you're home. Guess what happens when you're not working? You don't make money. So part of the program was also wealth redistribution. So what happens now is they're offering people money to stay home. You get to get unemployment. Now they're passing all these stimulus bills where you can get $1,200 out the gate, right? They're looking at passing another bill where you can get $2,000 a month per adult, no matter what your income is, and $600 for each child, I think up to 16. That's, if you got two parents and one child, that's $4,600 a month. That's what they call Universal Basic Income, UBI. And it's called wealth redistribution, right? Everybody get paid the same amount, no matter what you used to make. Also, you've crashed the market, the finance markets, the stock markets crashed. So if you got a 401k, guess what? It's been devalued. So the money you thought, well, I can ride this out for the next whatever months. Guess what? While you're living at home, if you are still working and you're only dependent on your 401k, you're going to deplete it. For one, is already devalued. Two, whatever's left in there, you're going to use. Also, how do they get you out of your house? Well, they tell you don't pay your rent. So the people who own those mortgages, those rental units, they're not making their money. They're small businesses, right? Two, they don't pay their mortgage right now for 3 months, but then they're coming up with this other plan where they don't have to pay for another year. And then they sign this agreement that if they can't raise the rent when they do money start coming in again, or whatever, we can start working again. And then they give the federal government, our federal government, UN, the U.S. federal government, the right to purchase the house before you sell it to someone else. So if you can't pay your mortgage because you're not working and you may have lost your job and can't get a new job, you go into forbearance or foreclosure. And believe you me, there are stipulations on you not paying your mortgage. You're gonna, just like in 2007 when people did those loan modifications, same type of thing. And a lot of people lost their homes after that. Okay, because they couldn't make up the payments. They couldn't make the payments. So I'm just saying, you have to read these contracts that the government's about to put y'all into. So you can't. So now you don't have a house. You got to move out your house. Where are you going to go? Government says, okay, I put you up in a house. We got housing. The other thing, the government says if they buy your house because you go to foreclosure, they're going to put low-income people in those. Or if you have a renter renting your home and they stop paying rent, eventually the government, because they're giving you this leeway not to pay your mortgage or whatever, they have the right, since they've been subsidizing you, to put in low-income people. So what does that mean? Low-income people can move into any neighborhood they want to now. And eventually everybody's going to live in the same neighborhood because they're going to push everybody into major cities so that they can monitor you. Now, also, I want you all to look into ID2020.org. That's another thing that they're pushing for everybody to get new IDs. Listen. Read, watch, open your ears. Don't just watch the networks. How many new developments are coming up in the major cities? Condos, townhouses, houses packed close together. Look. How many grocery stores don't have enough food? Can you go to a farmer's market and get food? I need you to go on YouTube, go through your articles on the internet, and read up on this stuff. Get a broader picture so you can make a better decision. And you can continue, if you don't even want to make up your mind about it, that's fine. Just have an open mind to say, is any of this stuff fitting